You know what I find genuinely strange about modern gardening advice? We're out here spending money on soil tests, bags of amendments, organic certification programs, and meanwhile, there are farming communities in Ohio and Pennsylvania who have been building some of the most productive, self-sustaining soil in North America for 3 centuries, with horses, and a rotation schedule their great-great-grandparents could have written on a piece of paper. I spent a good chunk of the last few years trying to figure out exactly what that system looks like. The Amish crop rotation cycle, not the romanticized version you'll find on a lifestyle blog, but the actual mechanics of how it works, why it works, and whether a backyard gardener can pull anything practical from it. And what I found genuinely surprised me. Because the thing the Amish figured out isn't a secret technique. It's a philosophy about time that most of us in the modern gardening world have completely abandoned. Stay with me, because by the end of this, I'm going to show you something that Cornell University researchers have been reverse engineering for years, and that an Amish farmer in Holmes County, Ohio, was just doing naturally without knowing it had a name. Let's start with the problem. The one that most of us are sitting with right now. You garden for a few years. Maybe you are doing everything right on the surface. You are composting, you are watering properly, you have good light. But every season you need to add something. More fertilizer because the soil is depleted, more pest intervention because the bugs keep coming back, more amendments because the yields are slipping. You are treating your garden like an engine that needs constant fuel from the outside, and in a sense, you are right, because that is how you have set it up. That's the trap. And it is not your fault. It is just how most of us were taught to think about gardening, as a series of inputs that produce outputs. Add fertilizer, get vegetables, stop adding, watch it decline. The Amish don't see it that way. And the difference isn't poetic, it's structural. Here's the core of what I learned. In Holmes County, Ohio, which is home to one of the largest Amish settlements in the world, farmers run a 4-stage crop rotation that goes something like this. Corn first, then oats, then hay or alfalfa, then a cover crop, usually clover or rye, before the whole cycle starts again. 4 years. 4 crops, each one doing something specific to the soil that sets up the next one's success. Now, before you tune out thinking this is only for people with acreage, stay with me. Because the principle behind the cycle is something you can scale down to a 4-bed backyard rotation, and the science of why it works is identical whether you're farming 70 acres with draft horses or managing a 20 by 20 kitchen garden. So let's actually dig into what each stage of this cycle is doing. The corn phase is the heavy feeder. Corn is one of the most nitrogen-hungry crops in existence. It pulls hard from the soil, and if you did that season after season, like industrial agriculture has been doing for decades, you'd strip the ground. But the Amish don't do it season after season. They do it once, and then they move on to something that fixes what corn broke. The oat phase is a transition. Oats are lower demand than corn. They don't take as much from the soil. But they do something subtle and important. They open up the soil structure. The root systems are finer and shallower, and they loosen the compaction that a heavy crop like corn leaves behind. Think of it as a palate cleanser for the ground. Then comes the legume phase, and this is where things get genuinely remarkable. Alfalfa and clover are not just plants. They are biological nitrogen factories. They host bacteria in their root nodules, specifically a bacteria called rhizobia that captures nitrogen directly from the air and fixes it into the soil in a form that the next generation of crops can use. When an Amish field sits in alfalfa for a season, it is essentially filling its own fertilizer tank for free. Modern agriculture discovered this mechanism and then decided it was cheaper and faster to just manufacture synthetic nitrogen instead. And that decision has cost us more than anyone has fully calculated. But the legume phase does something else too. Alfalfa roots go deep, sometimes 6 feet or more into the ground. They break up hardpan layers that shallower crops can't reach. They pull up minerals from far below the surface and deposit them in the topsoil when they decompose. They are, in a very real sense, mining the subsoil and bringing it to the surface. And all of that happens while the bacteria above are fixing nitrogen into the root zone. It's 2 soil improvements happening simultaneously, and it costs the farmer nothing but patience. Now here's the part that I've never seen properly explained anywhere. After the legume phase comes the cover crop, clover or rye or a mixture. And this one doesn't get harvested. It gets turned back into the soil. The Amish plow it under, what farmers call a green manure, and that dense mass of plant material becomes the organic matter that feeds the soil's microbial life for the next cycle. You're building the underground ecosystem. The bacteria, the fungi, the earthworms, the nematodes, all the invisible machinery that makes soil alive rather than just dirt. Research out of Cornell University has confirmed what Amish farmers in Ohio have observed for generations. Soils managed this way have measurably higher organic matter content than neighboring conventional plots. And higher organic matter means more water retention, more pest resistance, better disease suppression, and stronger plants. Not because you sprayed anything, because the soil itself is healthier. And here's where the 3-year promise in the title becomes real, because when you run this cycle consistently, soil, legume, cover crop, repeat, something changes around year 2 or 3. The inputs start dropping. You stop needing to buy amendments because the soil is making its own. You stop having the same pest problems because healthy plants aren't the easy targets that stressed plants are. One Amish farmer I came across in the research had documented his own crop disease losses over 3 consecutive seasons. 2.1%, 3.8%, 1.9%. The industrial farms next door, averaging 3.2%. And those conventional farms were using fungicide applications that the Amish farmer wasn't using at all. The system was doing the work. Now, I mentioned earlier that there was something Cornell researchers have been reverse engineering for years. Here it is. Modern regenerative agriculture, the movement that's all over farming publications right now, the thing that every forward-thinking soil scientist is excited about, is essentially a formalized, research-backed version of what the Amish have been doing since they arrived in Pennsylvania in the early 1700s. The principles are identical. Keep the soil covered, minimize disturbance, keep living roots in the ground year-round, diversify what you plant, integrate animals where possible. Dr. Catherine Morrison, an environmental systems researcher at Cornell who has studied Amish farming specifically, noted that these systems have structural resilience that conventional farms lack. When Lancaster County experienced 2 once-in-a-century rainfall events back-to-back in 2023 and 2024, she expected the Amish farms, with their pre-industrial methods, to suffer the most. They didn't. The soil structure built over generations absorbed the water that destroyed neighboring crops. You can't engineer that in a single season. It took time. It took cycles. But here's what's actually exciting for a home gardener. You don't need 70 acres to apply this. You need 4 garden beds, or even 4 sections of 1 bed, and a 4-year rotation plan. Heavy feeders first. Your tomatoes, corn, squash. Then root crops or brassicas that disrupt the pest cycles the heavy feeders attract. Then legumes, beans, peas, clover between rows. Then a cover crop, buckwheat in summer, winter rye in cooler months that you turn under before the next spring planting. Each pass of the cycle is repairing what the last one used. Each season, you're building something that will serve you more in year 3 than it did in year 1. One more thing I want to share, because it's something I've only ever seen referenced in passing in agricultural research, but Amish farmers in Holmes County use it routinely, and the logic behind it is elegant. They shift their planting dates by 2 to 3 weeks each year, not randomly, deliberately, because many common garden pests synchronize their life cycles to when a particular crop typically appears in the ground. The larvae hatch when they've evolved to expect the plant to be there. By shifting when you plant by even a few weeks, you desynchronize your crops from those pest windows. The larvae emerge, the plant they're looking for isn't there yet or has already passed that vulnerable stage, and the population crashes. No spray required, just timing. 300 years of close observation. When your family has been watching the same pests in the same fields across generations, you start to notice rhythms that no research paper would think to measure. That's the Amish crop rotation cycle. Corn, oats, legumes, cover crop, 4 stages, each one building on the last. A system that takes about 3 years to fully reveal itself, and then, if you've held the course, starts giving back more than you put in. We've been sold on the idea that the only way to have a productive garden is to constantly add to it from the outside. The Amish figured out a long time ago that the better goal is to build a garden that feeds itself. It just takes a little patience and the willingness to think in seasons rather than weekends. If any of this shifted how you're thinking about your soil, I'd genuinely love to know about it. Leave a comment below. Tell me what your rotation looks like or what you're starting with this year. And if you want more of these deep dives into the farming wisdom that got quietly left behind when industrial agriculture took over, the subscribe button is right there. See you in the next one.